Hey, welcome back to the Cheap Air Gunner channel. I'm Cherokee Steve. As you could tell from the introduction to the video, I've been doing some thinking and in regards to the chronographs and some of the differences I'm seeing in between them. Number one, I want to reference that introduction. I came across a post on Airgun Nation where somebody had did a very thorough test of these same two chronographs that I have, the Chrony chronograph and the Caldwell chronograph. The one thing that seemed to be consistent through that person's findings, and as he put in the post, consistently the Caldwell was giving higher velocity numbers and higher by about 10 feet per second over the Chrony. And that's exactly what I'm seeing. One of the things I'm definitely going to be doing, as you could also tell from the introduction, going to be picking up a third chronograph. Now, being the cheap air gunner, I did not want to invest any reasonable amount of money. I was actually looking for an unreasonable amount of money. And as you could tell, the cheapest chronograph I could find was on eBay, and it's one of those no-name Chinese ones that actually mount to the end of the barrel, and that's what you shoot through. The overall cost of the unit was $28.12 with free shipping. Now, some things I wanted to go over. I plan on using it and seeing the velocity that it gives me. Is it closer to the velocities I've been getting from the Chrony chronograph, or is it closer to the velocities I've been getting from the Caldwell? And then taking it from there. Now, as I said, I've been doing some thinking about the whole situation. And one of the things I've come to believe is that I should trust the velocity numbers from the Caldwell over the Chrony. And there's a couple of different reasons. Number one, Caldwell claims that their ballistic precision chronograph is accurate to within plus or minus 0.25% of whatever velocity reading it's giving. I looked up online a manual for the Chrony chronograph, and it states towards the end of the manual that the Chrony chronograph is manufactured to be within plus or minus 0.5%. So just based on the manufacturer's claim of accuracy, the Caldwell is supposed to be a more precise unit. And by the way, the claim for the cheap Chinese chronograph is also supposed to be reading within 0.5% or less. So, and to give an example of what that is, it's really not a lot when you're talking about the lower velocities of air guns. 800 feet per second. Let's say I'm consistently getting 800 feet per second from the Caldwell. Okay, well, that's supposed to be within plus or minus 0.25%. That calculates out to, at 800 feet per second, the only deviation should be within a plus or minus 2 feet per second range. And of course, at 0.5% for the Chrony, just double that. If it was reading 800 feet per second, it would be accurate within a range of plus or minus 4 feet per second. Both units are claimed to be extremely accurate. The Caldwell claims a little bit tighter tolerance for their accuracy in their chronograph. So that was one reason. The other reason I would tend to trust the velocity numbers from the Caldwell is the fact that it is a solid unit. With a set distance between the photocells. The Chrony emphasizes in their manual that it's extremely important because the unit folds. But because it folds, it states it's very important because of how the unit is calibrated and the distance between the photocells, that it be open completely, to make sure that it's open completely. Well, guess what's going to happen? In this particular chronograph is pretty old. As it gets opened and closed and opened and closed and opened and closed and opened and closed, the pins that hold the two halves together, rivets, I believe, is what they use, there's going to be wear. And that distance between the photocells is going to change. And that may explain the difference. I'm seeing that 10 foot per second difference between the Chrony and the Caldwell. But that did offer a possibility that I thought of. The fact that the Chrony can be adjusted, especially if I'm consistently getting velocities lower than the Caldwell. That tells me that the two photocells on the Chrony actually need to be closer together. Well, I cheated. Can't actually move the photocells. You can close up the unit very slightly, which I experimented with the front and the back underneath the chronograph with, well, there's some spider webs on here, with some wood shims, angled wood shimming, front and back. I wanted a gun that was not going to give a lot of variable or drop off with air usage, consistent, same quantity of air being used per shot. So I went with a pumper. And I used the 2289. I only shot Crosman Premier pellets, and I always shot with 15 pumps. What I'm going to show you first is the chronograph readings that I got for the Caldwell. And what I got for the Chrony. Now, those numbers were at the very beginning of my test run here, and establishing that it's still showing a lower velocity on the Chrony as compared to the Caldwell. So, it took a lot of shots and a lot of slight, very minor adjustments of those wooden shims. And I finally hit a spot where it seemed like the readings that the Caldwell was giving me were the same from the Chrony. And let me show you the numbers for, first I'll show you the numbers for the Caldwell. Then I'll show you the numbers for the Chrony. So I hit that spot with the shims that I thought I had that Chrony. I'm exaggerating here. It's not, it's opened up much flatter, but I can't do that with my wrists. But, you know, it closed up and brought those photocells closer together and gave me readings extremely close to the Caldwell. So it's kind of basically what I did was I calibrated the Chrony to the Caldwell. It was a very lengthy process, but I got it done. As I said, it took very minor adjustments over and over again with those wooden shims. So yeah, I've got to be extremely careful not to bump the table that I have the Chrony sitting on. But after establishing that calibration with the 2289, I went ahead and grabbed the KTHPA and put a shot over the chronograph, the Chrony chronograph and the Caldwell, again, just to verify readings. Here's the one using the KTHPA over the Caldwell. Here's the one using the KTHPA over the Chrony. So after all that, I was convinced. I've got the Chrony chronograph pretty well calibrated to the Caldwell. And I'm sure you're saying, Steve, why don't you just use the Caldwell? Well, I'm cheap. I'm cheap and I'm on a budget and money is tight. So if I need to generate income from selling one of these two units, I'm definitely going to get more money for the Caldwell than I would for this extremely old Chrony. Now, if this extremely old Chrony is reading velocities just as accurate as the Caldwell and doing so consistently, I'll keep the Chrony. I'm not going to get very much money for it, that's for sure. I didn't pay a whole lot of money for it. So if I need to generate some income for whatever reason, most likely it would be airgun related. Okay. But I needed to generate some income. I sell a unit, I probably would sell the Caldwell. Now, I'm not going to disregard that cheap Chinese chronograph that I have on order that is being shipped to me. I do want to put it through its paces. I will do a video with a review of it, operational aspects of it, and performance review of it. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm also looking forward to see how close this $28.12 chronograph is going to be to these other units, Chrony chronograph and the Caldwell. I can come down here and shoot over the Chrony, trust that the velocities I'm seeing are accurate velocities based on everything I just did, calibrating it and testing it. Again, I look forward to doing a review video on the ultra cheap Chinese chronograph to see how it performs. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Thanks for checking out the video. Guys, stay safe and shoot safe.